everybody. Welcome to the Mama Shoshana channel. I am Shoshana Mizell. It is so good to see you. It's been a while, but I have been doing so much stuff I'm so excited about. I have been working with a assistant, and I'm almost finished with the preliminary editing of my book. And I've just been putting on some incredible belly dance shows and different events, so that all takes up time. But I'm always thinking about you. I'm always working on myself. I'm always thinking about different ways of expressing and trying to inspire you with my growth, and as far as overcoming trauma, overcoming the symptoms of trauma, and sometimes just turning the thought into a different perspective on the symptoms of trauma and how it manifests itself. So hopefully this will help you. I have a couple of different things here. We're going to be talking about death. We're going to be talking about youth. We're going to be talking about sexuality. We're going to be talking about the aging. We're going to be talking a little bit about the mind and body connection and the body to the brain connection. So it's going to be a really cool podcast, I think. I hope you're going to enjoy it. So go get your tea or whatever you want to drink, sit down, relax, and let's just talk. Be right back. Okay, so I am just so excited about this. I actually started preparing this podcast a while ago, and I don't even know what to call it, but it definitely covers a lot of things. And at the end of the podcast, I think you'll see how they're all connected and intertwined into each other, and how you can integrate this into your life. So the first thing that may seem a little dreaded is death. Okay, and sometimes I look back at my life and I realize that I have actually been living in death. And what I wrote about that is death is like, you know, in life we're imitating death to deny its inevitability by the things that we do in life, which is maybe not engaging in like an emotionally intimate relationship, for the fear that, you know, it might end, not talking or taking chances on learning new things, fearing who we think we are, or how we perform, you know, or work or hobbies, etc., will be the death of what and how we define ourselves. So, for example, if you're a musician and you play a particular instrument and you play a particular style, and you don't want to study other disciplines or have different music teachers, or you don't want to really study different genres of music because you're afraid that somehow it'll take away from your originality, it will take away from your identity, and that you won't be your authentic self, which is a big catchphrase now, being your authentic self. And for me, for example, when I started belly dancing, you know, I was 19 years old, and I went to dance class, and I had under my belt, I had jazz, I had ballet, I had tap, and influences of a little bit of African dance, modern dance. And I took so many dance classes, not just belly dance classes from different belly dance teachers, but flamenco. I took all kinds of Latin classes, Afro-Caribbean, all kinds of classes. And I never got tied down to my identity. I realized that it's sometimes the outside influences that create your unique identity, but not me being in charge of it, creating it by choosing what I want. I just took in all of it, and whatever was meant to stick, whatever was comfortable for my body, whatever made sense, um, is, you know, what stuck to me, and all the other steps and all the other disciplines that just wasn't right for me. Not that I decided it, but my body intuitively knew. That just went away. And then I became the very thing that I was afraid of and also wanted. That's what I became. I became a follower, a copier, and then eventually I became unique. So that's the one thing is I feel like sometimes we can be in life dying because we're so afraid to take chances, because the identity that we work so hard to embrace ourselves, that will die. And it's quite the opposite, at least how I've experienced it. You know, we and talking about death and living in a sense of us not wanting to die, or our identity not wanting to die. I've lived all my life with worshiping, you know, youth, but not the ideal of perfect youth, you know, with no imperfections, like, you know, like a glass with streaks, or beautiful sand with no footprints in it, faces with no scars, even living, you know, even while we're living, we're becoming dead. So as far as youth goes, you know, attraction in women seems to be coming from youth. Youth is seen, obviously, unless you get very sick, youth is seen as the farthest thing from the end. If you're youthful, you look youthful, you're farther away from death than people who are older. And it's also, you know, an evolutionary instinct, and we desire to, you know, to procreate. So being youthful, you look at a youthful woman or man, and you know, you could see that they are of you know, an age where they can procreate, and the desire to procreate is giving life. So that constant action, the constant desire that seems like most human beings have in them, is to create a situation where life continues, which is really, really funny, because as human beings, we also create a lot of death by fighting and killing over the things that we feel will give life to our communities or our tribes. Humanity is, we're very complicated. You know, and it's funny because the older a woman gets, the older I get, I'll speak for myself, the more I want to hold on to my youth, hold on to, you know, taking care of my skin and my hair. But I don't know if you notice it, but the younger girls, especially on social media, they can't wait until they get breasts. They want to wear makeup. They're doing all these different TikTok dances that are, you know, very, very mature and have a kind of sensual feel to them, rather than them just staying little girls until, you know, they become a little bit more mature. And yeah, so older women are pressured to look younger, and adolescent girls are pressured to look like teenage, you know, teenage girls. So, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, why I feel younger. As I get older, I'm feeling younger. You know, why I put myself out there on social media. Yeah, some of it is for attention and validation, for sure. It's a desire to represent, you know, the sensuality of older women. And to me, how I do it is through dancing. It eases, you know, the thought of the inevitable end. So I'm 63 years old. By continuing to put out my talent, by continuing to try and inspire other women of mature age, I living more value, which keeps me not time-wise further away from death, but maybe it does, I don't know, but it keeps me mentally and spiritually and energetically farther away from the end. That's at least how I feel. So talking about women's sexuality and sensuality, then we come to something that I feel is very connected to that, which is this loving self-care, is like mothering myself, because of the things that, I never learned from a woman, because my mother died when I was very young. I was 8 years old, and my stepmother, she did the very best she could, but she didn't have that loving, nurturing, affectionate capacity. It's just what she went through. She just wasn't able to give it. So the act of self-care, can be very sensual. It's, very tactile. You're taking a shower, you're putting on cream, you're, massaging your own face and doing all these, nice things for yourself. It's very nurturing. And then the thing that comes out of that for me is a sense of confidence. And confidence can be extremely attractive. That feeling of confidence can actually change your facial muscles, because you stand up straighter. The muscles in your face are not drooping because you're not having a sense of, feeling defeated. You're having an uplifting feeling. That uplifting feeling is definitely shown in your facial muscles. So yeah, confidence is very sensual. And I think that my sensuality, I believe, was my flight from being sexualized, both mentally and physically. I have that. Actually, my last podcast talks a little bit more about my experience as a child with that. But yeah, being sensual is almost like an entire life experience. It's not like I turn on the sensuality. Sensual, like I'm extremely sensitive to smells, extremely sensitive to touch. I have really soft skin. So sometimes I'll just touch my own arm or my back or my stomach or something, because it has this soft, sensual feeling. And it's a very soothing, calming, visceral kind of experience. And so I'm re-experiencing or retraining my brain to feel a sense of sensuality from myself to myself, which rewires my brain to dispel that if I am at the hand of someone else's desires, my body has to please them, and I am kind of like an object to them, especially from a child to an adult. And that definitely, that can carry on. If you don't heal from that, that can carry on to my own adulthood and how my relationship was with men when I was a young one. But what it does, it brings me further away from the act and the memory of when I was abused, because I start to empower myself, my own body. I start to change touch and messages to my brain. I change the connection from I am here to serve the people who are supposed to take care of me, and it changes from I am here to love and care for a body that belongs to me. Turning the tables on being a victim by my subconscious and becoming intensely focused on like my own senses, mostly touch, smell, sound, temperature. That to me is taking back my power. And another thing is, and this incorporates being sensual, without ever having anybody else around to tell you, oh, you're so sensual. You're sensual without anybody having to witness it. Okay? But one important thing that I want to ask you is if you turn yourself on. Turning yourself on, let's say, what does that mean? That means that, when you look at yourself in the mirror, when you have no clothes on, or, do you feel a sense of sexual desire for yourself? And that's different than just like masturbating and just having pleasure. This is actually appreciating everything about yourself, feeling that sense of glory in being inside this body you were given. It's very different from thinking that you're all that, or being conceited, or being self-involved and self-seeking. It is about having this beautiful, tender relationship with yourself and thinking, wow, if I was someone else, I would definitely be attracted to myself. I would definitely feel, well, that is a really interesting woman or interesting man, or however you identify. So can I really expect someone to feel turned on by me if I'm not turned on by myself? It's a good question. Another thing is, which is a sensual thing, and sensual is not just touch, it is just sensing, sensual. So do you feel a part of and apart from yourself at the same time? What I mean by that is feeling whole, as a whole person, but also being able to kind of distance yourself from yourself when necessary, to observe what you're feeling, to observe without any judgment on yourself, kind of looking down at yourself, when out of body experience. Can you see yourself from the outside as much as you can feel yourself from the inside? And then I have here, I'm at 63 years old right now. I feel such a sense of feeling so young. And I think that's because I have unloaded so much trauma. There's so much more room now for me to have pleasure, that made more room to not be so encumbered by trauma, that I feel lighter. And feeling lighter, I can do more. I have less stuff crowded in my brain, in my subconscious and conscious, that I can give more. And I remember at 30 years old, when I was 30 years old, I felt so old. When I turned 30, I was like, oh my God, my life is over. What have I done so far? I got my first gray hair. So in 33 years of making mistakes and working very hard to heal, it's led me to where I am right now, where I am today in my journey. Lastly, with my connection to my body, one of the greatest sources of shame and frustration for me, and if you have experienced being sexually abused as a child, you might definitely identify with this. And that's this thing, is that being able to respect my limitations, having PTSD. I don't watch movies that have sexual abuse, onto children. I don't like and choose not to watch anybody being raped in a movie. I know what I can and cannot watch. I remember reading about this and a therapist telling me, many therapists telling me that this is completely natural, is that because I experienced abuse at such a young age, when my brain was developing and what I needed from my mother and father was a safe, affectionate love. I needed closeness, but I also needed boundaries. And that's not what I got. What I got was them sexually abusing me. So over time, I associated sexual acts with love. And as time went on even further, I didn't have the voice to be able to scream out, no, you can't do that, and run to the authorities. My anger was involved. So now I had these three things. I had love means sex, and sex means I have no autonomy over my own body, and that made me feel very angry. So then the next thing after anger was back to sex. Okay, sex, love, anger. So when I would hear about something terrible happening to a child, I would get angry, and then immediately I would feel sexual stimulation in my vagina. I didn't feel that way. I was horrified when I would hear anything happening terrible to a child, like I said, especially sexually. When I raised my three sons, I was so adamant about giving them autonomy over their own body, not giving too much information. But when the time came that they started asking questions, that my thing was that they owned their body. They said, they could say, I don't like how you're touching me. I don't like what's happening here. No, and run and tell a trusted adult. But with my experience, when I used to get angry hearing a child, story of a child being abused, that's what would happen. And, that happens a lot of times when you have a fight or flight, that it stimulates a lot of the same parts of the brain that stimulate like a sexual charge. And I hated that. I hated that my body was turning on me. This is not how I felt. So I spent years kind of being tortured by that. And, this is where my perspective changed. My perspective was, anytime that I had a little bit of a flashback of what my father did to me, I had this epiphany that, you know what? It's not that I'm reacting to the abuse and that my wires are misaligned, they're in the wrong plugs. It's that's, for me as a woman, is a beautiful, powerful organ. I mean, it brings incredible pleasure. It brings life into the world. So I see it now as, when I hear or think about memories of me being abused and I feel sexual stimulation there, even though my brain doesn't think that way, to me it's my body's way of saying, you know what? We are still alive. This part of my body that was abused is still able to feel, is still able to be vibrant, is still able to have pleasure. Nothing has killed my vagina's sensitivity. I have heard so many times that people who have been sexually abused completely lose any sexual feeling. They've just been so traumatized that that part of them has just completely shut down. So that was a very, very amazing epiphany I had, and nobody told me about it. It's just was working in therapy this last year, And that's what came to me, that, you know, my body is giving me validation, not a shameful response to abuse, but validation that nothing and no one could destroy one of the most sensitive, pleasure feeling parts of my body. So in the end, you know, however your body responds to memories that are traumatic for you, if it's not responding the way you think it's supposed to, turn the tables on it. It's your way, it's your body's way of, you know, validating to you. Wow, a lot of stuff going on here tonight. Your body's way of validating to you that no one could take away the pleasure that your body has a capacity for. So that was a lot, and hopefully I was able to express how all of that was connected. Hopefully this will help you in some way, stimulate some thoughts or ideas. Of course, if you have any questions at all, please ask me. I will read all the comments and I will answer any questions that I can. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I love you all, and I will see you next time. Mwah! Bye-bye.